How's it going, everyone? Batting sixth here, back again with another video here to talk about your Toronto Blue Jays. So if you're a Jays fan, like this video and subscribe. Once again, thank you to all the new viewers and subscribers. I'm definitely grateful. I know the channel is slowly growing and I really appreciate it. So liking and subscribing helps a lot. It's totally free, so please do so. But we like to get right into the news when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays. There's a lot of news because Kazuma Okamoto, he had a press conference today. Scott Boras was there. The Blue Jays representatives were there. It was nice to see. I saw a few clips of it. I just got home from work, so I was able to read through it. I read some rumors on my lunch break. I was reading rumors. You guys know how it is in this off season. But I want to give you guys a little bit of both sides of different reporters saying different things and kind of show you guys why it's still up in the air. But we will be talking about Tucker. Honestly, I feel like we're starting to see the market shape a little bit for him and why the Blue Jays still might be in. And there's actually some pretty big updates in regards to that. But I want to start with this report that came out earlier today on a Rogers and Olney's, not Rogers the communications, but the reporters here from, I believe, from ESPN, Rogers and Buster Olney, I believe. And again, I don't know who has legitimate sources. I'm just a guy in front of a computer. I'm just showing you guys what different reporters think about different players. And there was a really interesting bit here that comes from Rogers saying there was a feeling among some in the industry that Bregman was down to Toronto and Arizona before Kazuma Okamoto signed with the Blue Jays, and that it would push Bregman to the Diamondbacks. I don't know how legitimate that is. It doesn't seem real almost, like to me. And again, I don't have any sources, but to say that maybe the Blue Jays were considering Bregman over Tucker and Bichette, or maybe it was between Okamoto and Bregman, and it just made more sense to get Okamoto because they could use him in different spots. I mean, that could be real. I have no idea, but it kind of makes you wonder, were the Blue Jays actually really in there? Because Red Sox fans are thinking that they're the ones in negotiations, and of course, they're just fans. But in different articles that came out today too, it's saying that the Red Sox made a pretty significant offer, kind of long-term, which was what Bregman was looking for reportedly. So that's all up in the air. But the Blue Jays more than likely aren't in on Bregman, and there's more talk on him a little bit later that I will have. But it kind of moves us over to the press conference that the Blue Jays also had earlier today, like I mentioned before. And here is a full quote from Ross Atkins on if the Blue Jays are done adding this winter. And this comes from Brandon Will. My apologies. But this is a tweet with the quote here saying, "You've heard me say probably too many times to count that we'll always be open to making our organization and team better, if there's a way to do that. At this point, we were answering the question back in early December and even in November that we felt good about our team at that point, and that remains the case. We do feel good about our team. The one thing that I would add is additions at this point will start to cut away at playing time from players that we feel are very good major league pieces. So we have to factor that in. But we've always had incredible support from ownership." Basically, it's saying a whole lot of nothing, but also giving us a little bit of something. And the reason I say that is because Ross Atkins is saying, look, we liked our team before these additions, okay? We were comfortable going into the season with the team that we had, but now we've made them better. And if we do decide to make more additions, it could take time away from other people. That's your Schneiders, your Loperfidos, maybe a little bit of Clement, maybe a little bit of Barger, depending on who they would sign. Again, it would be Bichette. If it's Bichette, you're probably taking more time away from an Ernie Clement, unfortunately. But you might even put Ernie Clement at third base and then just move Barger to the outfield. But I think it's more or less the depth of the team. You're taking away some at-bats. But again, if you sign Bichette or Tucker, they're better players than most of your depth guys, if not all of them, okay? I mean, they are. Like, let's be real here, guys. I love Barger. I love Clement. I don't want those guys to go anywhere. But Bichette and Tucker are both better than those guys, and they're better than Schneider. They're better than Loperfido. They're better than all their depth players. So he's kind of saying here, like, saving face, like, we don't really need to do something, but we have really good support from ownership. And if we have to make a move, we're going to. And it's just going to push down the ladder a little bit. It's going to push people down. So that's very interesting. I think it's saying a lot without saying a ton. But also giving us those little tidbits of like, yeah, they're still in on these guys, but it's not fully what you're expecting. Now, another thing I do want to add is MLB Network tweeted this out earlier. What's next for the Blue Jays? And Steve Phillips, again, not too sure how legitimate his sources are always. Again, like these are just guys kind of making predictions at this point. But he spoke about how he doesn't really like the Okamoto fit, and he doesn't really know if the Blue Jays are going to be in on Bichette or Tucker, and he's kind of playing around the fact that he doesn't really like the fit, all those things. And this is not to harp or be pissy at him, because he brought up some good points that a lot of reporters have been talking about today, and I kind of want to push that off into my next piece that I have here, and that is Ken Rosenthal, who a lot of people deem to be one of the top insiders for baseball. And he brought up the fact that the Blue Jays are more than likely not in on Bo Bichette. Like it's increasingly unlikely that they would bring him back, and that the better fit for them is Tucker, and that he feels that they're still in on Tucker, and that would be the better fit for them. So to kind of tie all this together, the industry is kind of making us look at it this way. They just signed an infielder, which is Okamoto. They view Bichette as a guy that could still come back, but it's kind of unlikely, and that it almost looks like the Blue Jays are looking at the Tucker market and thinking, okay, the latest rumors is that the Mets don't want to commit long-term. They want to do a short-term deal. And they might like Bellinger better, which is also what the Yankees do. The Yankees are looking at Bellinger first, and then maybe Bichette as a backup plan. Then past that, who else is in on him? The Dodgers, right? But the Dodgers apparently are kind of sitting back and lurking and waiting to see if he falls to a short-term deal. So if the Blue Jays are potentially the only team, or one of the only teams, that are willing to give Tucker that long-term deal worth a lot more money than other teams are willing to do, and I mean, Steve Phillips said that he doesn't even think that the number is going to start with a 3, that it might start with a 2. I still believe it's going to be 3 plus if it's long-term. If the Blue Jays are one of the only teams there, and they're apparently a mutual interest, it seems like the Blue Jays could still be the quote-unquote favorite for Kyle Tucker. And I'm not trying to make stuff up here. I'm just talking. But it seems like the Blue Jays do have that interest and that edge in terms of the Kyle Tucker market. If they're one of the only teams that might be willing to go long-term with him, then it makes all the sense in the world. But if the Blue Jays are also one of the teams lurking and waiting to see if his market drops off, some other team might decide to go, you know what, screw it. We are going to go long-term. If everybody else is waiting, we're going to go long-term and give him what he wants. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff up in the air, but I tend to think Ken Rosenthal has a little bit more intel than some of these other people. And if he believes that the Blue Jays are the better fit, or that Tucker's the better fit for the Jays, and that it looks more like that's where they're leaning towards, I'm starting to think that that really is where they are. And Ben Nicholson-Smith, again, also brought up the fact that he thinks the Blue Jays are kind of waiting and seeing what's going on. I do believe this all ties together. We spoke about it in the video yesterday, but this is a whole lot of information. So I want your thoughts. I want them down below. I want to hear what you guys think. Are the Blue Jays the team in the lead for Tucker? Does it make all the sense for them? Are they a team that is going to be long-term for him, or do you think it's a short-term deal? Let me know. This was another packed episode. Again, let's just have fun here. Talk rumors in the comment section. Be respectful to each other. My name is Andrew. This is Batting Sixth. I'll see you in the next one.